Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. For those who are new to the channel, my name's Sean and also known as Film Guru, and this channel is really about me having my say on particular movies, TV shows and a variety of other film content. As the title says of this particular video, I'm going to look at ranking Rob Zombie movies. And this video is something a bit different because usually I just do reviews, so I wanted to do something that had a list in it. And I've slowly become a fan of Rob Zombie of recent times, and I just really wanted to have my say about his particular films and talk about the ones I like the most. Even though I'm ranking Rob Zombie films, I really do enjoy all of them in different aspects. There's just ones I enjoy a bit more than others. Number 7, Lords of Salem. This I thought was very visually interesting. Sherry Moon Zombie's really good in it. And it's sort of this creepiness to it. And I like the way that Zombie sort of visually tells this story. And there's some creepy moments in it and some unsettling things that work really well. The film really follows Heidi, played by Sherry Moon Zombie, a radio DJ who lives in a small Salem town, who ultimately receives a cursed record that she inadvertently plays on the radio. Then spooky stuff begins to happen. Is she going mad, or has the record brought the witches of Salem back to seek revenge? There is some grotesque moments in it that I don't really love, and there's some really strange stuff I don't know if it really works, and it takes its time to tell its story, which is fine, and it is a little different for the type of films that Zombie usually makes. Upon reviewing, I didn't enjoy it as much as I did the first time, and that's why it's in my lower part of the list of zombie films. Number 6, 31. This film to me is the most bloodthirsty film he's done. It's really about a group of carnies who ultimately are kidnapped and forced to play this demented game where they have to fight for their survival, going up against deadly killers and murderers and trying to survive the night. All this is run by 3 really unsettling and strange people. Sherry Moon Zombie, once again, is really good here. I like her character. The aspects of the film I do like is the carnies and the carny element and the family group that they form and how they're all very different and unique, and they add a little bit to who they are as people and as a group. And I really like that. And there are some really unique and interesting things that transpire. I really love the ending. I think the ending's really, really great, especially the last shot of the film. And it just has some interesting stuff that I like. I don't like a lot of the violence and over-the-top gore that he puts in his films a lot of the time. I think it distracts from the story he's telling. But this one's just a little too much for me, and that's hence why it's in the bottom part of my list. Number 5. House of a Thousand Corpses. First saw this film, I didn't like it. I thought it was silly and dumb and very dark and twisted, and I didn't like it at all. Except for one particular sequence where a missing girl's father comes to look for her, and this sequence that unfolds with him and the particular police officers is a really, really great and orchestrated sequence. This was ultimately Zombie's debut film. And it's sort of really out there and wild and crazy, and it reminds me a lot of the music clips that he did for his band in the early days. He hadn't quite found his footing as a filmmaker in this film, but there's stuff in it that he would use later in his sort of films, and I like that. I think the 4 characters in that film I really like is Captain Spaulding, played by Sid Haig, who's really great, and he's a really great and crazy character that's a clown that's sort of a bit absurd, and I love that. Sherry Moon Zombie's character, Baby's really great, and she has some good and fun moments in the film. Much like Bill Moseley, who's really great here, playing Baby's brother, and I really like what he does here, and it's a bit over the top and unsettling. This is ultimately a take in a way on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre sort of films. A group of teens unwillingly end up at this particular house. They systematically torment and kill these people. And it's really about how they go about that. There's absurd humor in it. There's some really strange elements to it. There's some really grotesque and disgusting things that I don't love about it. But overall, I kind of like this, and I think it's a very strong debut film. In my number 4 spot is Halloween 2. I think this is a really inventive film. I think this is one of the most original ones he's done. And I know there's a lot of stuff that happened behind the scenes that made this experience for him very difficult. And the studio wouldn't let him do the ending he wanted to do, where he ultimately wanted Laurie Strode to become the next killer and kill off Michael Myers. And I kind of really liked that. I thought that was a really great way to go about it. And they ultimately made Michael Myers a nomadic character who doesn't wear a mask, and he keeps away from people, and he lives a nomadic lifestyle. I really loved this. I thought this was so daring and inventive and interesting, and it's a unique way to take the series and do something really refreshing with it, which really needed to happen after the terrible film that it was Halloween Resurrection. And this continues on the events of the first film. We really get to see the effect of what has happened to Laurie, which we kind of didn't get to see with Jamie Lee Curtis's version of the character. Yes, we did get a little glimpse of it in the second film and obviously the recent Halloween 2018 film, but we never really got to see the straight effects of that, and I kind of like that they did that with this. And I like the appearance of this sort of supernatural element, this idea of Myers' mother appearing with a white horse, and the symbolism of that. People didn't quite understand what he was going with that, and he said he just wanted to have something to represent childhood. But for me, it's the idea that the horse and the mother is death, and that they're connected to Michael, and he has to keep doing what he's doing in order to be free, to free his family. And that's why he returns to the town and ultimately tries to rescue Laurie in a way and take her back into the fold. And the events and everything that transpires for him, putting back on the mask and re-entering who he was in the previous film. I thought that was really great and inventive. I liked some of the kills in that. I liked that there was such an anger to this violence that he unleashes, and the way he kills people is so full on and surprising in many ways, and I kind of like that. Number 3 on the list is Devil's Rejects. I really liked this film. For a long time, this was my favourite zombie movie. I thought it was really interestingly done, and I like how zombies sort of got you to sort of care for this family. And this is the sequel to House of a Thousand Corpses, and it is part of what is known now as the Firefly trilogy, because of the Firefly family. And it sort of looks at the events after House of a Thousand Corpses and how now the cops are after them. And they're the ones hunted, being the hunter. And it's sort of the very first film where you actually feel for these people. Yes, they're psychotic and crazy, and they've done some violent and disturbing and horrible things to people, but you kind of care for them. You kind of see them want to survive in this film, which is really strange. For a film like this, for an audience to do that, and he really humanises them in many ways. And it looks at how they're being punished and harassed by this particular sheriff who they killed his brother. And it's about how he's sort of trying to make them pay ultimately. Hands down, it has one of the best endings in a horror film. I really loved what they do with this. They're all driving to this sort of ultimate doom, and you've got the Freebird playing as the soundtrack, and it's just a really fantastic sequence. And I really love what he did there. It is sort of full on, and there is absurd humour that he has throughout his movies, and I kind of like that, and how they're sort of on the run, and it's about them trying to survive. I think this is a really great entry into his filmography, and that's why it sits at number 3 for me, because I thoroughly enjoy this in many aspects. Number 2 on the list is Rob Zombie's Halloween. Yet again, much like previous films I've mentioned, I didn't like this to begin with. I just am a huge fan of the original film, the John Carpenter version, and I just felt this was inferior in many ways. But after recent years and becoming a big fan of Rob Zombie again, I watched this again and I really liked it. I don't think it comes close to the original for me, but I like the interpretation of it. I like what Zombie was going for with it. And a lot of fans have talked about how they've enjoyed the first half rather than the second because there's a lot of references, but I like a lot of references to the original film. And I think it's kind of interesting to see where I kind of like we got a little bit of a backstory to Michael and why he became the person he became, and the sort of terrible place that he's come from. These sequences in this I really love. He goes after the sister, and there's this sequence where he just appears behind her and he puts on this big mask, which we know is a Michael Myers mask. And it looks kind of comical, but there's something really cool and disturbing about him sort of slowly walking after his sister as she's trying to get away from him. I kind of like that. There's a lot of elements and moments in the film like that. And he does this effect that I really love, is when Michael's killing people, there's this shudder. The film itself shudders and shakes. And it does this as he's killing someone. And I kind of like that. It was something visually interesting. And I liked the violence in Myers, and the anger and the very violent kills, and he's full of rage. And the kills reflect that, and I really loved that. I love the story it was telling. I love the look and feel of it. I love the fact that Zombie once again was going for the 70s feel. And this film you could really say it's in the 70s, except for one scene where a character used a mobile phone. I kind of like the idea of what they did with Loomis, with Malcolm McDowell playing him. I don't love the character, but I kind of like that they were going in a different direction than they did with Donald Pleasance in the original. And it's a type of film you can't really put up next to the original because it's its own thing and it's an interpretation of something we've already seen. What I loved most about this film was Sherry Moon Zombie's character. I really love Mrs. Myers and how she goes about playing it, and you sort of She really cares for her son as the film goes on, and visits him in mental hospital when he's a kid, and tries to sort of reach him in a way. But slowly but surely, he starts to wear masks, and he starts to remove himself from society and from people. Interaction in this film and her portrayal here, and it's her best performance in my opinion. I really love what she does here. Okay, my number one film, which you already guessed if you've gone through the whole video and saw all the ones that I've sort of, the order I've put them in, number one for me is Three from Hell. Now, people didn't like this. It hasn't been really well received, and is the final chapter in the Firefly trilogy. But I really enjoyed this. It'd be something we'd been waiting for so long, and then they gave it to us, and it wasn't quite what we thought it was going to be, but I liked that. I like the fact that it takes place after Devil's Rejects, and we see what happened there, and they're ultimately in prison. And I like that it has a sort of a Charles Manson family vibe when they're being arrested, and this documentary crew going doing interviews. I really loved that. This film was Sid Haig's final appearance before he passed away. And he is only in a small amount of it. He wasn't really well at the time, but he has this really great one scene where the documentary guy is interviewing him, and the dialogue he says in that little scene, he's really great, but they, unfortunately, because he wasn't well, they couldn't put him in more of the film. And I really liked the return, Sherry Moon Zombie's baby. She was great and crazy. I love the use of music. There's a sequence where she walks down the corridor in slow motion. There's this really great choice of music, which Zombie has this great ability to put in really good music into it. And the film really is about Bill Moseley's character and Sherry Moon Zombie's baby character escaping from prison and ultimately picking up someone else along the way. And they sort of go on the run. And it feels a lot like a Western to me. They escape the prison and they go to their Mexico. They go to this place to hide out and escape the authorities and be safe there, only to become attacked by a particular group, a particular mob that's out for them. And there's this really great showdown. And it feels like a small Western town, and these sort of anti-heroes have to fight back. And I really loved their sequence, and the end of it's brilliant. And just the way he shoots and it puts together, and is a bit different to the other two films, but I like that. It didn't feel as gory and as dark and violent as we had seen in the previous films, even though there are a couple of sequences in it that do have that element to it. I just thought it was refreshing. I don't like a lot of gore as a horror lover myself, which people might find strange, but I don't. I like more of a mystery element. I do like slasher films, but I just felt this was something different to his catalogue, and I enjoy this the most. I thought it was great, and I thought it's his best entry so far, and I'm looking forward to him doing The Munsters. I think this could be a turning point for him as a filmmaker. The Munsters is more of humorous, and more humorous than dark, and I want to see what he does with it. I think he'll show a different side of himself with this film, and I look forward to it when it comes out. Anyway, that's my list. Put in the comments below whether you agree with the ranking of his films in this list, if you're a fan of his, or how you would rank the films yourself. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. Follow me on Facebook and Letterboxd. If you enjoyed this video, please hit subscribe down the bottom. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.